All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on some creepy college tales. You guys sent in some stories from the Mr. Nightmare YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and we're going to kind of break them down and
Yeah, these are good.
see what makes them tick.
I like these stories a lot. I think
Yeah.
they're really interesting, especially because they're all first person. So, we're like right there with the narrator experiencing all this kind of spooky stuff.
Yeah, it's like we're in their shoes,
Yeah.
feeling that fear and confusion. And it's interesting because, these stories, while they're entertaining, they also kind of tap into some like universal anxieties, like
Wow.
starting college and being in a new environment,
Totally.
trying to fit in. I mean, it can be pretty overwhelming, and these stories really kind of play on that feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone remembers like the first time they went to college
Hmm.
and you're just in this new place. You don't really know anyone. It's a lot to take in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, why don't we just jump into the first story,
Yeah.
the one about the party with the green lines.
Okay.
So the narrator and his friends, they drive like over an hour to get to this party. And like right away, right off the bat, something feels off.
Yeah, the atmosphere is super strange. Like the music is ethereal and hypnotic.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's dressed really formally, and people just keep staring at them and then looking away.
Right.
It's enough to make you wonder if they like walked into some kind of cult gathering.
Yeah, it's giving cult vibes for sure,
Totally.
And it just creates this sense of disorientation and unease.
Mm.
Like they stumbled into something that they don't understand at all.
Yeah.
And then there's the detail about the green lines.
Mm-hmm.
So the narrator, he notices this thin green line on a girl's neck, and then later on, a guy in the bathroom.
It's such a subtle detail, but so eerie.
Right.
It makes you wonder, like, is it a birthmark? Is it a tattoo?
Yeah.
Or something else? Like,
Something more sinister.
yeah. And the way the story is edited with the narrator, like, slowly noticing more and more people with these lines,
Uh-huh.
it really builds the suspense.
It does. It's like that green line becomes like a symbol of this like unknown threat
Totally.
that's out there. And it kind of preys on our, natural fear of the unfamiliar.
Yeah. It's a great example of how, like, a simple visual detail can be so powerful in horror,
Right.
storytelling.
It is. It's like all about the visuals with Mr. Nightmare. That's kind of his thing.
Exactly. And then there's that confrontation with the guy in the bathroom who asks, "Who invited you?"
Ooh, yeah.
And then with this chilling smile, "Do you see Callista here?"
Oh, that sends chills down my spine just thinking about it.
I know.
That question about Callista is like key because it establishes this connection between the party and the narrator's group.
Right.
Like it suggests they weren't brought there by chance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which adds this whole other layer of conspiracy.
Yeah, it's like they're being watched, like someone is orchestrating this whole experience.
Exactly.
And then, bam, a red line appears on Ian's neck.
Yeah, things are escalating.
Right. It's like a visual indication that the danger level has just increased.
Yeah.
It makes you think, like, what do those lines even represent? And why are they changing color?
It's a good question. Mr. Nightmare, he never gives us like any easy answers.
He keeps us guessing.
Yeah, and that's what's so effective about it.
Yeah.
It's the ambiguity that fuels our imaginations
Mhm.
and just leaves us with this like lingering sense of unease.
Exactly. And finally, they decide to leave. Like,
They're like, let's get out of here.
they just feel like everyone's eyes are on them.
Yeah.
And it's this, like, palpable sense of relief when they finally escape that house.
Uh-huh.
But then he says that two of his friends even started developing red lines.
Oh.
But they ignored them.
That's so creepy. Like, why would they ignore that?
I know. It makes you wonder about, like, social conformity and peer pressure, you
Yeah,
know?
like they're so desperate to just like have a normal college experience
Right.
that they're willing to ignore these like increasingly obvious threats.
Yeah, maybe they convinced themselves it was just some weird prank or a hazing ritual.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But we, the viewers, know better,
Well,
right? We're like, get out of there.
And that disconnect between what the characters know and what we know as the audience
Uh-huh.
is what creates that delicious sense of dread,
Totally.
We want to scream at them to get out of there, but they're just caught up in the moment.
Yeah, and they're probably also, feeling those peer pressure vibes.
Right, exactly.
Like they don't want to stand out or be the odd man out.
Totally. So we're left with so many questions. Like, what was the meaning of the lines?
Yeah, I'm dying to know.
What was really happening at that party? Why were those girls so insistent on getting them drunk?
All good questions.
Yeah.
And, I think Mr. Nightmare does a really good job of using that, like, what is it called? Dramatic irony, where the audience knows more than the characters.
Yeah.
So, like, we're in on the secret, but they're not, which makes it even creepier.
Totally. It's a classic example of how, like, effective horror often lies in what is left unsaid, you know?
For sure.
Our minds just fill in the blanks
Right.
and create a far more terrifying experience than any, like, explicit explanation could provide.
Absolutely. Less is more.
Yeah.
You know, especially when it comes to horror.
Exactly. Okay, so that first story was a wild ride.
It was.
Now onto the second story, which feels a little closer to home
Yeah.
because it deals with this grad student who experiences this series of unsettling events after having his backpack stolen.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we've all had that moment of panic
Right.
when we realize we've lost something important, but this takes it to a whole new level.
Definitely. It starts out relatable, right?
What's
Like
it?
we've all been there,
Yeah.
lost our keys, lost our wallet,
Uh-huh.
but then it just spirals into something much darker.
Right. What starts as like a relatable inconvenience quickly becomes something far more sinister.
Yeah.
And it begins with these handwritten notes slipped under his door.
Yeah.
Just 3 words, I see you.
Chilling.
Right. And then things get physical. Objects moved. His
Ah.
room completely ransacked.
Oh, no.
It's a violation of his personal space.
Yeah.
And it makes you question, like, his safety, you know? Is it just random vandalism?
Right.
Or is there something more targeted and sinister going on?
Like, is someone messing with him?
Yeah.
Or is it just like a random act? It's
Exactly.
the ambiguity that makes it so creepy,
Yeah.
you know? Like, we're left wondering, is he just overreacting?
Right?
Or is there a genuine threat?
Yeah.
And the lack of concrete evidence really feeds into his paranoia.
Totally.
And ours as listeners.
Absolutely. It's like that feeling when you think you see someone watching you,
Oh, yeah.
but you can't be sure.
It's the worst.
And then there's the landlord's dismissive attitude,
Ugh, the landlord.
which adds another layer of frustration and fear.
Yeah, talk about unhelpful.
I know, right?
Like, come on, man.
The landlord represents that all too common experience of not being believed when something feels wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so frustrating because it makes you feel like you're going crazy.
Right.
Like you're the only one who sees what's happening.
Exactly. His refusal to take the situation seriously just isolates the student further.
Yeah.
And makes us question, like, who can we trust when we feel vulnerable?
It's a good question. It really makes you think about who you would turn to in a situation like that.
Totally. It's like he's being gaslighted,
Oh, yeah.
made to feel like he's imagining things.
For sure.
And that sense of isolation is heightened by the fact that this is a grad student, you know? Someone who's supposed to be focused on his studies and, like, building their future.
Yeah.
Instead, he's trapped in this, like, psychological nightmare.
And it makes you think, you know, grad school is already stressful enough.
Right.
And then you add this on top of it, like, oh, my God.
Exactly. And the fact that he's a grad student brings up another interesting point. He's likely living alone.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe in a new city away from his usual support system.
Right, exactly. He's all alone.
And that isolation just makes him an even more vulnerable target.
Totally.
It makes you think about the importance of having a strong support network, especially when you're facing a situation like this, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, who do you turn to when you feel like no one believes you?
That's a good question. And it's one that resonates really deeply with, like, the anxieties of college life
Yeah,
and beyond.
for sure.
So the story ends with the student, like, holed up in his apartment,
Oh, no.
prepared to confront the intruder head on.
I don't like where this is going.
We don't know what happens next, but it doesn't look good.
No.
What do you think he should have done differently?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's easy to judge his decisions from the safety of our, armchairs.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to acknowledge, like, the powerful grip of fear.
Yeah.
He's acting out of desperation,
Right.
trying to regain some sense of control
Yeah.
in a situation that feels increasingly out of control.
Right. He's clearly reached his breaking point. It makes you wonder, like, at what point does fear turn into action?
Uh-huh.
And how do we know when we've crossed that line?
That's a question we all have to answer for ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
But this story really highlights the importance of recognizing when we need to reach out for help,
Right.
whether it's from friends or family or, the authorities,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
It's a reminder that we don't have to face our fears alone.
Absolutely. There's always someone out there who can help.
So now the third story shifts gears a bit.
Okay.
It deals with the very real dangers of online harassment and stalking,
Yeah.
which is something that can happen to anyone in this digital age, you know?
It's true. And it's something that we should all be aware of
Exactly.
because it's so easy to become a victim of online harassment,
Right.
especially with social media and everything.
Yeah. It's a story that resonates deeply with our current anxieties about privacy and online security.
For sure. Like we're constantly reminded that what we share online
Uh,
can have real-world consequences.
So the protagonist is this young woman who has just gone through a breakup.
Okay.
So she's already stressed about this major group project.
Right.
And then, bam, during the presentation,
Uh-oh.
her project is replaced with this disturbing video featuring a masked figure
No.
spewing hate speech. I mean, it's a nightmare scenario,
That's awful.
especially for someone already feeling vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like a public humiliation.
Right.
On a massive scale. Designed to, like, discredit her and isolate her.
Exactly.
And the fact that it happens during a class presentation
Right.
just adds another layer of cruelty.
Yeah, it's like her academic and social standing are being attacked simultaneously.
Ugh, it's like the stuff of nightmares.
Right. And it gets worse.
It does.
Her email gets hacked.
Oh, no.
Then her Snapchat.
Gosh.
It's clear that someone has access to her most private information and is using it against her.
That's terrifying.
It is.
Like the idea that someone could just hack into your accounts
I know.
and see all your private messages and photos.
And this is where the story taps into like a very real fear. The fear of losing control of our online identities, you know?
Right. It highlights the fact that our sense of self can be so fragile in the digital world.
Yeah, and it's scary how quickly things escalate.
It is.
The harassment moves from the virtual world into the real world.
Oh, no. So they know where she lives.
The stalker adds her on Snapchat and starts sending pictures of her,
Wow. That's so creepy.
letting her know they are watching her.
Oh, my gosh.
That shift from virtual to physical stalking is what elevates the story to a whole new level of terror.
Right, because now it's not just online anymore.
Right, suddenly the threat is no longer abstract. It's tangible and immediate.
It's like your worst nightmare come to life.
Yeah, it makes you think about all the information we casually share online, you know?
For sure.
Our locations,
Yeah.
our routines, our thoughts and feelings. In the wrong hands, that information can be weaponized against us.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's often so difficult to trace the source of these attacks, too.
Exactly.
Like the stalker is hiding behind anonymous accounts.
Right.
So it's hard to seek justice or protection.
It's a reminder that while the internet offers incredible opportunities for connection and communication,
Yeah.
it also comes with inherent risks, you know?
Definitely.
We have to be vigilant about protecting our privacy
Right.
and setting boundaries online.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that online harassment is a form of abuse,
Totally.
just as damaging as any physical assault. It's about power and control,
Absolutely.
and it's never the victim's fault.
So this story ends with the chilling realization that the stalker is still out there.
Oh, gosh.
The fear is palpable, and it leaves us with so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, like, will they escalate further?
Exactly. What can she do to protect herself?
Right. And what resources are available to help her?
It's a reminder that the effects of online harassment can linger long after the initial attacks have stopped.
For sure. Like, it can really mess with your head.
Totally.
You know, it can erode your sense of safety and trust
Yeah.
and make you question your place in the world.
It's like a violation of your sense of self.
Exactly.
Like you're no longer safe even in your own home.
Yeah, and it can be hard to shake that feeling
Right.
once it's there.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like a shadow that follows you around.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes this story so effective. You know, it really gets under your skin.
Definitely. It's one of those stories that stays with you long after you've heard it.
Exactly.
Like you keep thinking about it and wondering what happened next.
Right. And it makes you think about your own online presence
Uh-huh.
and how you can protect yourself.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we all need to be more careful about what we share online.
Yeah. And who we trust.
Exactly.
Because you never know who's watching.
It's true. You never know.
So I think that's a good place to stop for today.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We-
And I think we've all learned some valuable lessons about online safety and the importance of having a strong support network.
Absolutely. These stories are a reminder that we're not alone in our fears.
Yeah.
You know, we all have anxieties and vulnerabilities,
Right.
and it's okay to talk about them and seek support
Yeah.
and find comfort in knowing that others have experienced similar challenges.
Totally. So join us next time for part 2 of our deep dive into creepy college tales,
I can't wait.
where we'll continue to explore the dark side of higher education.
It's gonna be good.
Until then, stay safe out there and remember,
Yeah.
don't trust anyone,
Especially not that landlord.
especially not the landlord.
Yeah, he's definitely up to something.
Yeah. All right, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's like a violation of your sense of self. Like you're no longer safe even in your own home.
And I think that's what makes this story so effective, you know? It really gets under your skin.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of those stories that stays with you long after you've heard it, you know?
Hmm.
Like you keep thinking about it and wondering what happened next.
Right, and it makes you think about your own online presence and how you can protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And it's a reminder that we all need to be more careful about what we share online.
and who we trust.
Exactly. Because you never know who's watching.
Okay, so we've talked about the party with the green lines,
Uh-huh.
the grad student with the stalker notes.
Right.
What else have we got?
Well, there's one more story that I thought was particularly creepy.
Okay, lay it on me.
So this one's about a college student who starts seeing this weird symbol everywhere she goes.
Okay, a symbol, like what kind of symbol are we talking about?
It's described as like a circle with a dot in the middle.
Okay.
But it's not just any circle. It's like this really intricate design,
Okay.
like almost like a mandala or something.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So at first she just thinks it's a coincidence. You know, like maybe it's just some random graffiti tag. But then she starts seeing it everywhere.
Everywhere. Like how everywhere?
Like literally everywhere. On walls, on flyers, in textbooks,
Wow.
even on people's clothing.
That's so strange. It's like it's following her around.
Yeah, and it starts to really freak her out because she can't figure out what it means.
Right, like is it just some random symbol or does it have a deeper meaning?
Exactly. And the story doesn't really give us any answers.
So we're left to our own imaginations.
Yeah, which of course makes it even creepier.
Totally. So what happens next?
Well, she starts doing some research, you know, like trying to figure out what the symbol means.
Uh-huh.
And she comes across some really disturbing stuff online.
Like what?
Like websites and forums dedicated to the occult.
Ooh, okay.
And it turns out that the symbol she's been seeing is associated with a particular deity.
A deity, like a god.
Yeah, and not a benevolent one either.
Oh, no.
It's described as a malevolent entity that feeds off of fear and suffering.
That's unsettling.
Yeah, and the more she learns about this deity, the more she starts to believe that she's being targeted by it.
Targeted. Like, why would this deity be interested in her?
That's a good question. And again, the story doesn't really give us a clear answer.
So we're left to speculate.
Yeah, maybe she's just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Maybe there's something about her that's attracting this entity's attention.
It's like she's become a magnet for the supernatural.
Yeah, and things start to get really weird for her.
Like, how weird?
Well, she starts having these vivid nightmares,
Okay.
and she feels like she's being watched all the time.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. And then one night she wakes up and she sees this symbol glowing on her bedroom wall.
Oh, no.
It's like it's come to life.
That's terrifying. So what does she do?
Well, she tries to ignore it at first. You know, like maybe she's just imagining things.
Right.
But it keeps happening.
So she can't escape it.
No, it's like
Yeah.
it's everywhere she goes.
It's a reminder that sometimes, even in the safety of our own homes,
Yeah.
we're not truly alone.
And that sometimes the things that go bump in the night
Mm.
are more than just our imaginations.
Mm.
And that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are more than just our imaginations.
So we've talked about 3 really creepy stories so far.
We have.
The party with the green lines, the grad student with the stalker notes, and the girl who kept seeing the creepy symbol.
Right?
And I gotta say, these stories have been super unsettling,
Yeah, they're definitely creepy.
but they've also been really thought-provoking, you know?
Yeah.
They highlight the importance of online safety and the devastating impact of harassment, but they also leave us with a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, that's something I find particularly interesting about the way Mr. Nightmare crafts these stories.
What do you mean?
Well, he doesn't tie everything up neatly with a bow,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
He leaves us with a sense of mystery and unease, which I think forces us to confront our own fears and anxieties.
It's like he's saying, here's a glimpse into the darkness. Now what are you going to do about it?
Exactly. It's a challenge to the viewer, isn't it?
Totally. And I think that's one of the reasons why these stories resonate so deeply with people.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't offer easy answers or simple solutions. They force us to grapple with the complexities of human nature and the unsettling reality that sometimes bad things happen to good people.
Yeah, and you know, there's something to be said for embracing that ambiguity, for acknowledging that we don't always have all the answers.
Right. It's like those moments in life when you feel like you're walking through a fog, unsure of what lies ahead.
It's about learning to navigate uncertainty, to trust our instincts, and to build resilience in the face of fear.
You know, as we've been discussing these stories, I've been thinking about the role of storytelling in helping us process difficult emotions.
Oh, interesting.
Like these tales, while fictional, they tap into very real fears and anxieties that we all experience.
It's like a form of catharsis, isn't it?
Yeah.
By confronting these fears in a safe fictional space, we can perhaps gain a better understanding of them and develop coping mechanisms for dealing with them in real life.
It's like exposure therapy, but for the mind. Right.
And I think that's one of the most valuable aspects of horror storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to explore the dark corners of our psyche without actually putting ourselves in harm's way.
And it can also spark important conversations about these issues. Like
Yeah.
by sharing these stories and discussing them openly, we can raise awareness about the importance of online safety, mental health support, and creating a culture of empathy and respect.
Absolutely. These stories are a reminder that we're not alone in our fears. We all have anxieties and vulnerabilities, and it's okay to talk about them,
Yeah.
to seek support, and to find comfort in knowing that others have experienced similar challenges.
And ultimately, I think that's what makes these stories so powerful.
What do you mean?
Well, they remind us that even in the face of darkness, there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always the possibility of connection, resilience, and finding our way back to the light. Ah, that's a beautiful thought. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of creepy college tales. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the scariest thing isn't the monster in the closet, but the fear of the unknown lurking just out of sight.